Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Welcome, new viewers, wherever you're watching from around the globe. Great to have you all here tonight. Censorship. Yeah, we know it's an issue, and there were fireworks today as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testified in front of Congress. It was a divisive hearing. There were smears and jeers and insults and concerns and politics, and I don't know. I don't even know where we wound up, other than to say that we certainly have problems. We'll show you the highlights. Big day, mainstream media. They've touched on it, but they're not giving it anywhere near the amount of attention that is warranted or needed. That is certain. What else do we have for you tonight? Paul Bernardo, serial killer, will remain in a medium security facility as the Canadian Justice Department, correctional facility people who oversee the prisons, they've decided that transferring him there was appropriate, even though that transfer has sparked a huge political backlash. We'll get you some reaction to that. Russia has imposed travel restrictions on UK diplomats. Barbie, the Barbie movie, seems to be doing well at the box office, and some people are trying to sell Barbie now as a feminist icon after decades and decades and decades of the opposite messaging coming from the woke left. It's weird, man, with this culture war. I got to tell you, very, very weird. And Trudeau, too. I'm going to try and get you some video of Trudeau getting heckled and jostled. And I guess he wasn't able to get into a venue to speak. So I do have video that was sent to me. I just need to figure out a way to get it on the screen. All that and more coming up right here on the Maverick News Channel. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testified today in front of Congress. It was a hearing dealing with censorship. And what can I tell you about it? Well, wow. Talk about political dysfunction on display. For me, watching it today, I watched it in sections. I didn't watch it all live. I couldn't do it today. I was just too busy doing other things. But I did watch it all. I got through it, and it left me feeling frustrated because everybody's fighting. We're talking about the issue of free speech, and what are we getting from the left? They want to censor everything, man. Well, they and say it's not censorship. They even tried to have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dismissed from the hearing today. They tried to have him prevented. They tried to prevent him from being able to testify because they say that he's anti-Semitic and racist and a conspiracy theorist. So here we are at a inquiry of sorts into censorship, and the first thing they wanted to do was censor really the main witness. They wanted to shut him up and shut him down. There were some pretty tense exchanges between the Democrats and the Republicans. A lot of stuff discussed regarding, the government response on the information warfare side to the pandemic. There was also, some testimony regarding the Hunter Biden laptop from a New York Post journalist who spearheaded a lot of the reporting that went into that during the last election. Very revealing testimony there as well. The hearing it just highlighted all the politicization of government. It showed that government really has had a hand, and in fact, a direct, how can I put this? A line of direct contact from the government and the lettered agencies like the FBI, CIA, straight into the social media companies, directing them illegally, unconstitutionally, to censor certain people for certain kinds of wrongthink. This session today was, to say the least, Orwellian. If you haven't read George Orwell's 1984, now would be a good time. It'll lay out today's reality. In 2023, Orwell, the only thing I think Orwell got wrong was the year, 1984. It was bad enough in 84 that people laughed back in the 80s and they would say, well, it's almost a free country. Yeah, well, now I don't see how you can have a free country when the government, which is not supposed to constitutionally be allowed to exercise or impose censorship on the population. How can you have a free society when they are controlling the flow of information to this degree? And it's on full display. And yet the Democrats are sitting there saying, oh no, because during the pandemic, we were only trying to save lives. So they're justifying the censorship by saying it isn't really censorship when it's done in the name of safety, or when they're trying to shut down information that they deem to be inaccurate. They're so far out to lunch. Now, there was truth on both sides to some degree. There was, some BS a little bit on both sides, as there always is. But generally speaking, the vast majority of the distasteful stuff, from my perspective, was absolutely coming from the Democrat side, from the neoliberal woke crowd, the woke mob. And the session, the exchange that took place between Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Democrat, high ranking in the party, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the smears that she leveled, the insults, the accusations, completely inaccurate, unfounded, unsubstantiated. She just called him every ism, she just used every insult in the book. She just went to the playbook and just grabbed all the insults and just threw them all at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today. Racist, sexist, you name it, he was it. And anti-Semitic. This is a guy who supports Israel. He's on the record doing so. And actually, a lot of people who have been supporting him, live streamers, social media influencers, journalists, and others who have been supporting RFK Jr., a lot of them are sort of pro-Palestinian. And they've been criticizing RFK Jr. for being so supportive of Israel. And then here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz and other Democrats today during this session saying that he's anti-Semitic. It boggles my mind. And this is a woman. These are Democrats from the party that RFK Jr. wants to lead into the next election as their nominee. Do you really think they're going to let him take the nomination? Maybe if Biden just, keels over and croaks, which is possible at any moment. But they don't like him. They don't want him. They hate him. Anyway, so let's go to a clip first of all of Kennedy. And of course, the main criticism that the media has been using ever since since before he announced his candidacy for the DNC nomination for the run of the presidency. He's anti-vax. Yeah, he has concerns about the COVID vaccine, as many people do. He stated that publicly, but and he has concerns about some other vaccines as well. But when he says that he's not anti-vax, he is actually quite correct. He is not an anti-vaxxer per se, but he does advocate for proper testing and proper procedures to be followed to make sure that people are protected. Anyway, let's go to this first clip as we give you some highlights from today's session in Congress.
The what I would call defamations that have been just applied to me by the ranking member. I'm happy to talk to you about my opinions on these issues, what you have stated and tried to associate me with through guilt by association is simply inaccurate. Virtually everything, every statement that you just made about me is inaccurate. I have never advised Black Americans not to receive vaccines. At one point you say I'm anti-vax, and that's a bad thing. The other moment you point out that all my children are vaxxed. I'm fully compliant with the vaccine schedule myself, except for COVID. I took flu vaccines for 20 years straight. I have never been anti-vax. I have never told the public avoid vaccination. The only thing I've asked for, and my views are constantly misrepresented, so that the truth of what I believe is we're not allowed to have a conversation about that with the American people, which I believe vaccines should be tested with the same rigor as other medicines and medications. You tried to associate me a moment ago with the replacement theory, which is racist.
No, I did not say you.
Time belongs to the gentleman from
I
the
said
second.
my colleagues.
Time belongs to the gentleman from.
I denounce that theory. It is racist. and I have never endorsed it or had any association with it. Our film on a medical, by the way,
medical apartheid?
Bill Buxton, who is the black CDC official who ultimately exposed the Tuskegee experiment, tried for years and years to appeal to CDC to stop it for 40 years. Finally, he got relief by walking into my uncle's office in the building next door. He held hearings and ended the experiment. I remember that very well. And to say that I created a film that encourages blacks not to get adequate medical care is just completely abhorrent.
Don't misuse my words.
It's the witness's time. Do not censor the witness.
I'm not censoring the witness. I'm not censoring the witness. He's still talking.
It's
I don't
my
have the
time, and I've
ability to
given it to the
censor.
witness. Do not censor him.
I'm not censoring him.
If the views that you and others have applied to me, I've attributed to me, if they were actually true, I can see why I shouldn't be able to testify here today. Those are not true. These are defamations and malignancies that are used to censor me, to prevent people from listening to the actual things that I'm saying. And I think, ranking member, that we should have a real conversation rather than an exchange of ad hominem attacks. And answer very quickly to your question, the term malinformation was coined to describe information that Facebook and Twitter and the other social media sites understood was true, but that the White House and other federal agencies wanted censored anyway for political reasons because it challenged official orthodoxies. I'll give you one example. I was included in a group called the Disinformation Dozen. And Facebook and others were asked to censor us, which they did. And by the way, my Heck Aaron post, it was taken down. My whole Instagram account with 900,000 people was taken down because of that. Oh, they knew, Facebook knew that the Disinformation Dozen claim, and what they said, the Disinformation Dozen came from this very shady group called the Center for Preventing Digital Hate in England that's funded by dark money, that should be looked into. They claim that 65% of the vaccine misinformation on the internet was generated by those 12 people. Facebook itself said that is impossible. That is false information. We know that not to be true. And yet, when the White House asked them to censor this Disinformation Dozen, including me, they did it anyway when they knew it to be untrue.
My time has expired. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent motion before. I would like to introduce page 2 of the transcript of Laura.
Okay, so we'll just pause there. So that was his response, during the early portion of the session today, taking exception to what they've been doing to him, and what they did today in the session, they've been doing to RFK Jr. in the mainstream media and online through social media posting. They've been, beating him up, smearing him, his own party. I don't. There are some people accusing RFK Jr. Well, they're accusing the Republicans of using RFK Jr. To weaken Joe Biden before they head into the next election. They're saying basically that he's a plant or controlled opposition or controlled friendliness within the party, that he's there to destroy the party. I don't know. Maybe, whatever. Think what you want. He's been a lifelong Democrat. The Kennedys have always been Democrats. It's strange to me, though. All the support that he seems to have comes from Republicans. I don't know how he is going to win the nomination when his own party hates him. And there may be some grassroots people in there, basically the Bernie Sanders type of Democrat, that will come online, or maybe a bunch of Republicans will join the party to push him through and get the nomination. I don't know, but I don't think so. The Democrats in today's session were out with knives and they were repeatedly stabbing him in the back, not helping him at all, quite the contrary. And if you want to know how much they hate him, let me see here. Okay, here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Democrat, high ranking. You know, these Democrats, they play politics dirty. Here she is. I think this is it here. Let me just make sure. Yeah, here we go. Here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Listen to the insults.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we respectfully requested that you rescind Mr. Kennedy's invitation to appear here due to his repeated and very recent statements that spread dangerous anti-Semitic and anti-Asian conspiracy theories and attempted to move into executive session because House rules prohibit public testimony that degrades or defames people. His reckless rhetoric helped fuel anti-Semitic incidents, which for the record are at the highest level in the United States since 1970. They have nearly tripled in the last 6 years. Since you gave Mr. Kennedy a megaphone today, I want to give him a chance to correct his statements and prepare some of the harm that he's helped cause. Mr. Kennedy, you're well educated. So yes or no, please. Are you aware that for centuries, Jews have been scapegoated and blamed for causing illnesses like Black Plague and more recently, COVID?
I am. Those are known as blood libel, and they are one of the worst and most disturbing parts of human history.
Good. I'm glad to know that, of course, that you acknowledge that. Of course, it's true and well documented that this pernicious form of anti-Semitism led to centuries of discrimination, even horrific pogroms and massacres, and it still fuels deadly violence today. Yet last week, you floated a baseless conspiracy theory that the coronavirus was bioengineered to target Caucasians and Black people, but to spare Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. Mr. Kennedy, your bizarre, unproven claim echoes that same historic slander of labeling Jews and Chinese people as a race, and that Jews, and in this case Chinese people, somehow managed to avoid a deadly illness that targets other groups for death. You do see that, yes or no?
You're misstating.
No. I quoted what you said earlier, and it is directly what you said. So just ask me yes or no.
I was describing an NIH-funded study.
No, you didn't cite any.
I was describing an NIH-funded study by Cleveland Clinic scientists.
Reclaiming my time. You did not reference reclaiming my
published
time.
in USC
Mr.
Medical,
Chairman,
which is one.
The time is mine. I'm reclaiming it. Please ask the witness to stop talking.
You asked me a question.
Reclaiming.
Allow me to answer my question.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like about 10 seconds back.
The time belongs. You are slandering me incorrectly. You're saying it's dishonest.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from
Florida.
Florida.
Defend myself.
Mr.
Time
Chairman,
belongs to the gentlelady from Florida.
I'd like 15 seconds back.
We will be happy to give you that.
Thank you so much. You did not cite any study like you are citing here now during that conversation. You referenced no study at all. You simply labeled Jews and Chinese people as a race, and you also said that somehow they managed to avoid a deadly illness that targets other groups for death. You don't see that? You're trying to rewrite history here. A few months ago, Mr. Kennedy, you compared COVID public health policies to barbaric, murderous tactics of Nazi Germany, saying that Jewish people in Nazi Germany had more freedom than Americans facing COVID health restrictions. In hindsight, Mr. Kennedy, do you reject this absurd and deeply hurtful and harmful comparison, or do you still stand by it?
Congressman, what you are saying is a lie.
That you said it.
I did not. I never contained.
Okay.
I never ever.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to enter into the record when Mr. Kennedy said that. I reclaim my time. In discussing COVID public health measures, you made light of the genocide against Jewish people by saying, and I quote, "Even Hitler's Germany, you could cross the Alps to Switzerland. You could hide in an attic like Anne Frank did." Mr. Kennedy, do you think it was easy for Jewish people to escape systematic slaughter of Nazis? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good. Mr. Kennedy, do you think it was just as hard to wear a mask during COVID as it was to hide under floorboards or false walls so you weren't murdered or dragged to a concentration camp? Yes or no?
Excuse me?
That's a question, yes or no?
I didn't hear your question.
Okay, I said, do you think it was just as hard to wear a mask during COVID as it was to hide under floorboards or false walls so you weren't murdered or dragged to a concentration camp?
Of course not. That's ridiculous.
But that's a comparison that you made.
I did
Mr.
not
Kennedy,
make that comparison.
Were the measures taken to contain the spread and fatalities related to COVID in any way at all comparable to the murder of 6 million Jews? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Let's be very clear here. There's no legitimate comparison to the Holocaust. It doesn't matter if you're talking about AI, vaccine mandates, or anything else. There is no comparison. And if this were a slip of the tongue, Mr. Kennedy, or a one-off comment, we would all move on. But there's a deeply disturbing pattern. In 2015, you apologized to all those, quote, whom I offended by my use of the word Holocaust to describe the autism epidemic. When discussing efforts to encourage others to get vaccinated for COVID-19, you said Nazis did that in the camps in World War II. They tested vaccines on gypsies and Jews. That was a quote. Like before, you apologized for invoking the Holocaust, saying, quote, to the extent my remarks caused hurt, I am truly and deeply sorry. These are not real statements of contrition or remorse. They are passive-aggressive non-apologies that blame the listener for reacting to the lie you just spread. I'm deeply saddened that this is a conversation we're having today. I have deep respect for what Mr. Kennedy's family did and still does to make life better for all Americans. But what you are doing now, Mr. Kennedy, and the forces you aligned yourself are reckless, dangerous, and disturbing by echoing dangerous claims such as, quote, Jews don't really suffer as much as we do, which you said. Your rhetoric creates a climate of mistrust, antagonism, and even hatred or violence against Jewish people. My own children have been the targets of brutal anti-Semitism on social media. You fan those flames and jeopardize their safety. You've marginalized other groups too, like Asian Americans and the LGBTQ plus community. And worse, you don't seem to care or brush it all off to misquotes and misunderstanding. Frankly, it's disgusting. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. I yield back the balance.
Mr. Chairman, I have unanimous consent
The
request.
gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for UC.
I ask unanimous consent. Said that they investigated genetic susceptibility to COVID-19 by examining DNA polymorphism in ACE2 and TMPRSS2. Those are receptors for COVID in 81,000 human genomes, and they found unique genetic susceptibility across different populations. I have another document that I would like to ask unanimous consent
Without objection.
to submit, and this is from the FDA review of efficacy and safety of Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. This is dated December 10th, 2020, and it shows that the Pfizer trial and the USDA broke down the effectiveness of the vaccine into 7 different racial categories because this was also a concern of theirs, and it would frankly be delinquent not to study the effects across the
But
different
Mr.
races.
Kennedy said it was bioengineered to
Without
target,
Time
blacks and
belongs to
Caucasians.
The gentleman from Utah
And
is
spare
recognized for 5
whites
minutes.
and spare Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. That is different
Time
than any of
belongs
those
to the
studies.
gentleman
Like
from Utah.
Thank you, claiming my time. Mr. Kennedy, you've had some accusations thrown at you today. I'm going to ask my questions briefly and give you a chance to respond to that at the end of my time here. Ms. Wiley, if I could talk to you, and I know maybe you're busy, with something else there, but
Gonna
you
let this go
trust the government
because I want you to hear
determine
this
what
and the
facts and views the
response.
American people should be exposed to?
I trust that we have a process whereby we can interrogate
That-
what we hear and learn from the government, but certainly I expect the government to share facts and information.
That wasn't my question. I didn't say share facts and information. I said, do you trust the government to determine what facts and views the American people should be exposed to and which ones they should not?
Well, I think I'm struggling with the question because that is not the facts of the case in
Simple question,
Missouri.
simple
In Missouri
question.
versus
I'm not talking about
Biden,
Missouri. I'm not talking
which
about
is
Missouri.
what I was
Hey.
hearing.
I'm not talking about Missouri. This is a very simple question. Do you trust the government to determine what facts and views the American people are exposed to?
I am not aware of any action of the government
Okay,
that
I'm gonna
tells the
take that-
American public what facts they should be exposed to.
You're not aware of that?
No, I am not.
Oh my gosh, where have you lived for the last 3 years?
In the United States of
Okay,
America.
let me ask you, China suppresses free speech. Is that a good thing?
No, of course not.
Iran, mullahs there suppress free speech. Is that a good thing?
No, of course not.
Vladimir Putin suppresses. Is that a good thing?
No, we all
So
agree
can
we
we
should not
agree then,
suppress free
we
speech.
agree then that the government government leaders should not suppress free speech? Do
Oh,
we agree with that?
that's a different question. Yes, it is unconstitutional
How
for the
is it
government
di-
to pass laws that would abridge free
Okay,
speech. That's the First
or
Amendment.
not pass laws, but to create pressure that would suppress free speech. They don't, Vladimir Putin doesn't pass a law.
Yes,
He exerts his force and influence to suppress free
Yeah.
speech.
Yes, the case law says that the government cannot coerce private entities.
And we agree that's a bad idea, don't we?
Yes, and I would absolutely agree
We
Donald
agree,
Trump-
Van, the government
when Donald
shouldn't,
Trump
wait,
threatened social
we ag-
media companies
Hang on,
with
hang on,
federal
hang on,
regulation
hang on.
shutdown, that was coercion.
That's not my question.
Oh, I know, but I think it was consistent to show that we
Here's my
agree.
question for you. We agree the government shouldn't be responsible for restricting views that the American people are exposed to. We agree on that, right? You wouldn't answer it at first,
Oh,
but it's
that's-
clear that you do agree with that.
That's a
because when-
different question.
Okay, so to my question, do you agree with it or not?
I agree that the government should not violate our Constitution.
Do you agree with my question?
Your question
Should
is
the
whether
government
or not
determine,
the
this is so simple.
No, it is not so
No,
simple.
I'm going to ask it
because-
one time, and it is so simple. A seventh grader could understand this question. Should the government be responsible for the views and the facts that the American people are exposed to?
The problem I have is that I
Okay,
don't
I'm
know
gonna
of
say
any
that- I'm gonna
facts
say
in
that
which the
you're unable
government
to-
tells us
I'm
what
going to
to
say that
believe.
you're unable to answer a question, which for me is fairly shocking as an American citizen. Let me ask you now then, having concluded that you're unaware of suppression of free speech in the last several years, what about, for
That's not actually
example,
what I said, but thank you.
do you think it was appropriate for the FBI to pressure private companies to censor and take down posts that the government disagreed with? Was that appropriate? I'll give you an example that you were unaware of. I'm glad you're aware of it now. Was that appropriate for the government to do that?
Sir, the only thing that is appropriate for the government to do is what it is lawfully allowed to do, both under the Constitution and the laws of this country,
Which is?
which is to conduct its criminal investigations appropriately to our laws and to our
So
policy.
they didn't have the ability then to go to these private companies and to say they can't.
There are
views to.
There are instances in which, in order to protect the integrity of a criminal prosecution, they may ask, sometimes news agencies and others to
Certainly agree with
withhold.
that. Was that the case here? Was there any
I-
criminal prosecutions involved with these cases? Not that I'm
There were
aware of.
criminal investigations are not prosecutions.
criminal
And also
investigations?
the integrity of criminal.
Were there any criminal investigations regarding these examples?
Which examples are those, sir?
For example, anything regarding the Hunter Biden laptop?
Well, there are lots of things that have been said in public media about Hunter Biden's laptop. There was a criminal investigation, in fact, a plea in that case.
Does it bother you that 51 former intelligence officials made a determination that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, which they admit, by the way, they had no evidence at all that that was true. Zero evidence that that was true. Does that bother you they did that?
What bothers me tremendously is that while there are a lot of things we should be talking about with regard to whether or not the government at times exceeds its authority, that includes whether or not government exceeds its authority when it tries to censor, interfere with research or research institutions, where any White House official, such as Donald Trump, actually threatens the full power of the federal government, including the threat to shut down social media because they put a
time of the
fact check
gentleman-
label on a
gentleman's
tweet.
expired.
Mr.
I
Chairman, I
agree
have a
with that.
unanimous consent request.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized.
I'd like to submit for the record TIP Insights, a New Jersey-based Institute of Policy and Politics poll conducted of over 1,000 adults between August 2nd, August 4th of 2022 showed that 8 in 10 voters, if they were made aware of the Biden laptop, that would have been determinative in changing the outcome of the election. It also demonstrates that 61% of Democrats included in this poll would have changed their vote. Submitted for the record.
Without objection, thank you. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
I've been in
Would have
this
changed the
Congress
outcome of the
15
election.
years.
that's right. Yeah. It's such an important point. It really is. Again, how can you have a free society and a properly operating democracy when the government is engaging in censorship, suppression of information, silencing and deplatforming journalists, by having direct influence over social media companies, which are supposed to be private companies, private entities, free of government coercion when it comes to making editorial decisions, especially when these companies are exempt from the same kinds of regulations, laws that exist for regular publishers like newspapers, television, radio stations. They get special treatment because of the nature of their medium, but the government is controlling these online platforms, and there were references made to specific pieces of evidence which prove the US government, the Biden administration, has been engaging in direct control of social media platforms. Again, here, let's go back to the session and hear concerns now about the Orwellian nature of today's social media environment.
Level of Orwellian dystopia. Suddenly the tools of the trade are not to get at the truth, but to distract, distort, deflect, and dissemble. To disagree is censorship. To try to correct the facts is to infringe on my right of free speech. Of course, it only works one way. The name of Dr. Fauci has been invoked. I'd love to have him here as a witness to describe his travail in being censored. But of course, with that right-wing censorship comes intimidation and threat and intimations of violence. And a wink blink that, by the way, violence, can be justified. The violence, for example, here on January 6th has been explicitly excused by some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle as a bunch of tourists who got a little out of hand, a little overexcited. 5 are dead, including my constituent, Capitol Hill police officer, who died the next day from the trauma and shock of that experience. And ironically, talk about free speech and duty, he voted for Donald Trump. But his duty was to be here that day. Often a scolding. And somehow, my freedom to harm with the words I use is considered further evidence of censorship. But we know words have power. And that's why we take care with the words we use.
So there's your Democrat perspective. And then there's this Hunter Biden laptop issue. Well, who have I got queued up here next? We have, this is Johnson from Louisiana. Yeah, this is, again, him outlining how the government was taking control of social media companies and exerting pressure on them, which is illegal, actually, to censor political opponents. Here he is. Oh, shoot. I just messed it up. Hang on. Let me see if I can get that clip requeued for you. Too many things open up. Let me take a quick break. I'll be right back, and I'll get that nailed down for you.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So what we're really going to do here now, actually, is going to go to Emma Jo Morris of the New York Post, talking about the Hunter Biden laptop story that the government, through social media, suppressed in order to help Biden during the last election. Here she is.
Decade. What was more scandalous than the reporting itself, though, was the fact that it exposed the unholy alliance between the intelligence community, social media platforms, and legacy media outlets. At the time, I was deputy politics editor at the New York Post, and my reporting showed that despite then candidates Joe Biden's repeated and furious denials, he was apparently involved in the foreign business deals of his family. Over several days, just weeks before Americans would vote for their next president, I revealed verified, authentic emails from the Biden Scion's hard drive showing Ukrainian business partners receiving leaks from the Obama White House. I documented an off-the-books meeting between then Vice President Biden and a Ukrainian energy executive, and introduced the world to the big guy who got action on a deal with CEFC, China Energy Company. The Post published exactly how the material for the reporting was obtained, even identifying our sources, as well as a federal subpoena showing the FBI was in possession of the material the story was based on and had been since December of 2019. But when the stories appeared on social media that morning, the venue where millions of Americans go to find their news and editors to get their angles, within hours, the reporting was censored on all major platforms on the basis of being called hacked or Russian disinformation. Twitter refused to allow users to share the link to the stories, banned the links from being shared in private messages, a policy, by the way, that's used to clamp down on child porn, and locked the Post out of its verified account. Facebook said it would curb distribution and reach of the links on its platform. However, the stories were not based on hacked materials, nor were they Russian disinformation. And despite those claims appearing to come out of thin air at the time, we would eventually learn that they actually didn't come out of thin air at all. On October 19th, 5 days after the Post began publishing, Politico ran a story headlined, "Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo, dozens of former intel officials say." God, I can't even say that with a straight face, you know? Politico printed a letter completely uncritically from veteran members of the US intelligence community, falsely claiming that the Post expose has, quote, all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. My God. Most notable among the signatories of that letter were Jim Clapper from former DNI, Michael Hayden, former CIA, John Brennan, former CIA, despite having such damaged credibility following their participation in the Russia collusion conspiracy theory. A few days later, on October 22nd, when Biden appeared in the second presidential debate and was confronted with the facts of the Post reporting, he said to Trump, quote, 50 former national intelligence professionals said this, what he's accusing me of is a Russian plot. But it was not, and he knew that. Now, fast forward to this year, 3 years later. Just last spring, House investigators revealed it was a call by now Secretary of State Antony Blinken to former acting CIA Director Michael Morell that prompted the spy letter published by Politico, which bypassed agency approval processes that would have been normally applied. It is also now known that ahead of my reporting, federal agencies were priming social media companies to execute an operation to discredit it. According to internal documents released by Elon Musk upon his acquisition of Twitter, the FBI and other intelligence community members essentially directed the platform's censorship operation, in part externally by working with top management, and in part internally by social media companies hiring eye-popping numbers of agency alumni. Journalist Michael Schallenberger reported, based on documents he obtained from Musk, that during all of 2020, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Twitter executives to dismiss reports of Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation. Feds arranged for top secret security clearances to be granted to Twitter management and even had encrypted messaging networks set up, which they dubbed a virtual war room. To this day, hundreds of people from the intelligence community work at social media companies. Over the last few years, my reporting has been confirmed by virtually every mainstream news outlet, from the Washington Post to the New York Times to Politico, when the stakes were nothing, by the way, 2 years later. No one denies that the laptop is real, that the origin story is exactly what I told you it was in the first place. This elaborate censorship conspiracy wasn't because the information being reported on was false. It was because it was true, and it was a threat to the power centers in this country. What this relationship between the US government officials and American corporations represent is an unprecedented push to undermine the First Amendment, the right to think, write, read, say whatever we want. And how we respond will determine whether we see a free press as inalienable or as optional. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Morris. Mr. Sauer, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
So that's information that most of you probably are already aware of, and it was very apparent to me from day one what the situation was with that New York Post story on the Hunter Biden laptop. The journalists, she deserves a Pulitzer for the work that was done on that. She deserves an award just for dealing with the censorship, the deplatforming. Everyone thinks of the New York Times, you know, especially people on the left, when they try to point to a journalistic organization that sets the bar, the standard for journalism. They go, oh, New York Times. Hardly, not at all. The New York Times is a rag. The Post did the heavy lifting there, and they were penalized for it. And then when social media platforms admitted that they made a mistake, and admitted that they shouldn't have suppressed that information, it was too late. Biden was president in the White House by that time. Oh, oops, we made a mistake. Yeah, a big one. It definitely changed the way that election went. Was it enough to change the actual outcome? That's open for debate, but it sure looks like that could be the case. That, folks, is exactly what I've said for a long time. That's how you cook an election. You don't need to do it at the ballot box or with voting machines. You do it through information campaigns and by suppressing information through censorship and through propaganda. We are in the middle of an information war. No question about it. Let's listen to Republican Kat Cammack now, who represents her constituents in Florida. Here we go, Kat Cammack.
The door was opened. You know, I'm deeply concerned about the fact that there were FEC reports brought up. Mr. Kennedy, you acknowledged that you don't know where those came from. You said that you have no affiliation with those. That PAC, that super PAC, I believe. The ranking member said she was deeply concerned about the affiliation. And we seem to have a guilty by association theme going on here. And so I just have to state for the record that I myself am deeply concerned about the affiliation of the convicted sex trafficker, Jeffrey Epstein, of which the ranking member took campaign donation money from. So I think that's the beauty of the First Amendment, is that we have a right to say what we want to say, but we also have the right to be offended. So I just wanted to point that out, you know, glass houses and all. Our Democrat colleague, Mr. Lynch, opened up the door of what does the impact of the continued narrative of weaponization have on the general public? And I think that's really important, because what we have seen in the last couple of weeks is irrefutable evidence of the fact that the FBI has not only been systematically working to censor American speech, but they have been facilitating it, and in some cases at the behest of foreign governments. A weaponization report proved that there was a direct connection between the Ukrainian SBU, in which that intelligence service was sending spreadsheets of thousands of posts, in some cases posts that were belonging to the United States State Department. And because we know that the Ukrainian SBU is rife with double agents, the FBI wasn't even vetting the posts. They were simply sending them direct to the social media companies saying, please take these down. So now we have an FBI that is not just saying that they're going to fight foreign interference, they're facilitating it. At one point even suggesting that they put forward a 24/7 channel where the FBI takes requests from a foreign government and filters it right to the social media company to have those posts taken down. And it was across the board, anti-Ukraine, pro-Ukraine. That right there proves that they weren't vetting the posts. That's a problem. We've established clearly with hard evidence that there is in fact a weaponization of the federal government against the American people, and every single day that we do not acknowledge it is a bad day in America. The pillars of our constitutional republic, not democracy, are being taken down bit by bit because the press is being told they can't ask the tough questions. Ms. Morris, you have probably received threats. You have been censored. You have been silenced. Mr. Sauer, you have been before us many times, and you have expressed the pushback, the threats that you have received. Mr. Kennedy, I can't imagine what you receive on a daily basis from both the left and the right. So I'm going to go to our Democratic colleague, Mr. Lynch, and ask the question, what impact does the continued narrative of weaponization have on the general public? I know he framed this in a way to make a point that it is somehow negative to ask the tough questions, but I'm going to ask our three witnesses here. What are the ramifications if we don't talk about it, if we don't expose it? And I only have 25 seconds, so Mr. Sauer, take it away.
If federal censorship is not stood up to aggressively, it will expand to every corner of the online.
He's off mic.
Ms. Morris.
It's just this, I can't even believe this is a conversation. Like, this is not controversial or taboo. We live in the United States of America, and you have the right to say whatever you want, to print whatever you want, and to read whatever you want.
Mr. Kennedy.
A government that can censor its critics has license for every atrocity. It is the beginning of totalitarianism. There's never been a time in history when we look back and the guys who were censoring people were the good guys. All of us grew up reading Arthur Koestler, Robert Heinlein, Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, and they were all saying the same thing. Once you start censoring, you're on your way to dystopia and totalitarianism.
And I know my time has expired, but Mr. Sauer, you said earlier, censorship is about power. Censorship is about control. And the entire progressive leftist agenda is about nothing more than dependency and control. That is why this is so important. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chair, before that, I have
Excellent points. Excellent points. Here's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about health outcomes during the pandemic and the impact that censorship actually had on exactly that. The death rate and the quality of care that people received during the pandemic and the lockdowns. Here we go.
The censorship, the effort of the White House and pharma to suppress the acknowledgement of natural immunity and why they might have been doing that.
Well, again, there was an effort to suppress information, not, in fact, if you read the Twitter files and the email correspondence between Facebook and the White House, there was an acknowledgement that they were being asked and they were complying with censoring information that everybody knew to be true or highly likely to be true. the purpose, and in fact, the term misinformation did not denote falsehood or veracity. Rather, it was a euphemism for any information that departed from government orthodoxies. And it is very dangerous. And, the congressman a minute ago said 1 million people have died because of misinformation about vaccines in this country. But in fact, our country had one of the highest vaccination rates in the world and the worst health outcomes. We have 4.2% of the global population. We had 16% of the COVID deaths. Blacks in Haiti with a 1% vaccination rate were dying at a rate of 15 per million population. And same in Nigeria, had a 1.3 vaccination rate. They were dying at 1 in 14 per million population, 14 per million population. In our country, blacks were dying at 3,000 per million population, 200 times the death rates in other countries. And this holds throughout the world. We needed information. We should have all been sharing information openly and talking to the 15 million doctors through the internet who were treating patients on the front line all over the world and channeling the best therapies, the most successful treatments, so that we can all figure it out. This is not a time in a pandemic I'll just say this one thing. Trusting the experts is not a function of science. It's not a function of democracy. It's a function of religion and totalitarianism, and it does not make for a healthier population.
Let me ask you this. You referenced your father and your uncle and the party that they were in. What has happened to your party with respect to the First Amendment? Would they recognize the position now?
I think, listen, I'm a Democrat, and I believe in if you went through a checklist of all of the things that my father believed in, that he fought for, that my uncle believed in and fought for, I would check every box. I feel my party has departed from some of those core values. And one of the reasons that I want to run for president is to reclaim my party for those. But it's got to, listen, this is not a partisan issue. The First Amendment, it just seems crazy to me that anybody thinks that it's okay to censor. And there's a lot of information that I don't like. There's hateful information. But as the chairman was saying, in 1977, the ACLU went out and supported Nazis who were walking through a Jewish neighborhood in Skokie, Illinois. And they said, that's important. We hate what they're saying. We're repulsed by it. But we cannot survive as a democracy if we are not ready to die for the right for even people who are appalling to speak. The democracy won't work. Unfortunately, there's no other way to control it but through the First Amendment and free speech.
Amen, and thank you for those comments.
Time the gentleman has expired. Ranking Member, I have one other question I could ask, but I would first give you a chance to ask the question if you had. I just have one quick question for Mr. Kennedy, but I want to be fair. If you got an extra question you want to ask Ms. Wiley and the witnesses, I'll turn to you first.
Wasn't prepared for that, so
Well, I'm
if you
sorry.
just give me a second.
I thought I was going to get 15 seconds from Mr. Massey, but we aren't able to do that.
Sure. Thank you, sir. I did want to ask Ms. Wiley.
Enough of that. And back to Emma Jim Morris from the New York Post. This right here, this is just dramatic. It's so raw, what you're about to hear. It may wash over everyone simply because we're being desensitized to this story. But listen to the words. Listen to what Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, the Biden family, listen to the level of corruption in these words, the way that it's described. I can't believe, well, I guess I can, but I can't find justification for Joe Biden spending another minute in the White House. Just Anybody else would be behind bars, honestly. Listen to this.
Finish her trying to be generous, even when the response is that the government determines the truth.
I would like for her to be able to finish her sentence, Mr. Chairman, then I will yield back.
Okay, Ms. Wiley, you can finish your sentence.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I remember the sentence, but thank you.
coming
I
up.
just think the point was, it was.
I do. You were saying
there's
the
a
government
record-
should be the arbiter
Can
of
you
what's
please
truth.
not put
That's
words into
actually-
the mouth of the witness and let her respond?
Chair
It's
now
her
recognizes the
answer.
gentlelady from New York, the gentlelady from California.
I love
Time
how
has
you
expired.
follow the rules,
Time
Mr.
is-
Chairman. It's
time is-
really indicative of
time
what a
is,
kangaroo court this is and
Censorship.
what a
It's
circus it
censorship
is.
by the chair. It's censorship by the chair.
Oh, Lord. The
Thank you,
gentlelady from
Mr.
New York is
Chairman. Thank you,
recognized.
Mr. Chairman. Ms. Morris, isn't it true that your October 2020 Hunter Biden laptop from hell story has proven to be 100% factually accurate?
I was 27 when I published that story. It better have been.
Isn't it true that the FBI obtained Hunter Biden's laptop a full 10 months before your story broke?
That's correct, according to the subpoena that I published.
Isn't it also true that we now know that the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force coerced social media companies into an alleged forthcoming Russian, quote, hack and leak operation, and as a result, illegally censored the Hunter Biden laptop story? Isn't that true?
Yes.
And this forced censorship by government agencies like the FBI was paid for by the taxpayer, since the taxpayers fund the FBI. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And Hunter Biden's laptop from hell, it has everything. It's a hellhole and cesspool of corruption and criminal conduct. It has hard drugs, prostitution, pornography, money laundering. It has Biden family shell companies, communist Chinese, corrupt foreign government deals for tens of millions of dollars in exchange for access to the Biden family. The Hunter Biden laptop from hell has all of this, correct?
Yeah.
And the American people are smart. They know that this was not a hack and dump. This was illegal government censorship to protect and prop up Joe Biden on the eve of the 2020 election. And according to polling, of people who were now made aware of the Hunter Biden laptop story, 53% would have changed their vote, including 61% of Democrats. So do you agree that the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story was determinative in the 2020 election, Ms. Morris?
Yeah, there are various polls that say that that there would have been a change in the outcome of the election, and obviously it's immediately relevant to a decision on who to vote for, so obviously.
And do you believe that this government censorship was election interference?
Yes, any censorship of speech prevents your ability to think clearly. Yes, of course. Yes.
And Mr. Kennedy, I want to turn to you. You've heard me lay out this example of egregious and illegal government censorship. You have been censored yourself. Do you believe that government censorship is a form of election interference?
Yeah, I think government, I think democracy is dependent on the free flow of information. And if that information is distorted, if the public is lied to, then it interferes with election. And by the way, it interferes with public health. And the Wall Street Journal did an article a couple of weeks ago suggesting that the censorship of important health information cost American lives.
And Mr. Kennedy, I want to ask you specifically about the Hunter Biden laptop story. The total blackout on all social media outlets as well as telecom. You couldn't text the link to the Hunter Biden laptop story. This specifically was a form of election interference by the U.S. government in the 2020 election.
I don't know enough about it. I know that there was censorship on that story and other stories that, presumably could have changed people's minds about the election.
And we know the polling demonstrates that now. People have said they would have changed their vote had they been made aware of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Isn't that correct?
I'm not aware of that, but I'm not surprised.
Mr. Sauer, I want to turn to you. I want your reflection on this form of government censorship, specifically in the 2020 election as a form of election interference, and what I believe is some of the, most egregious political scandals that, I will live through in my lifetime. Mr. Sauer, what are your reflections?
I strongly agree with your characterization of that form of censorship as election interference. The evidence in our case strongly supports that. It strongly supports, and actually we have judicial findings now, that the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story was done at the instigation of federal officials in the FBI at a very high level of that organization. It was an orchestrated campaign of deception that was anticipatory. It was planned in advance, and it was, I think, consummated with the testimony that I hadn't seen before that's been put up today from Ms. Demlow, characterizing how at the very end the FBI then clammed up at the last minute after spending months of seeding the record in these endless, ceaseless meetings with social media platforms about there's a hack and dump coming, it's going to involve Hunter Biden. Then when it actually came, they said, well, no comment. Our judge focused on that particular issue as kind of the coup de grace in this form of election interference.
Thank you. My time's expired.
Mr. Chairman, a point of order.
Well, you just heard it there. I mean, for me, the most powerful language there was the description of, the laying out of all the activity that the Biden family had been involved in, all of which is chronicled in the Hunter Biden laptop from hell. Evidence of business deals over in Ukraine. Why do you think we're at war in Ukraine? The money laundering that goes on over there, the Biden family, direct ties, business deals over there, Joe Biden obviously aware, evidence of that on that hard drive. Doesn't matter that he's denied it. The truth is he knew. Directly involved. And the guy's sitting in the White House, enriching himself and his family at the expense of taxpayers to a level that is beyond the imagination of most people. Even me. I can't fathom the amount of money that is floating around and finding its way back into pockets that it shouldn't be found in. This war in Ukraine is not just about democracy. Money, power, money, 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 money. People making lots and lots and lots and lots of money. Send the weapons, don't account for them. We've shown you here on this program. We went and we found them, weapons on the internet, the dark web, for sale. You want a rocket launcher? Plenty of them out there for sale. The cash, the US dollars flowing into Ukraine, the Canadian dollars, dollars from all Western NATO countries. And you go back and it's all laid out in the laptop. The Biden family, direct ties into Ukraine before the Russian special military operation began. And deals over in China too. All of that seems kind of weird to me, given all the saber rattling that's going on between the United States and China. The Biden, I'm telling you, man, the guy is so compromised. There's so much corruption, so much dirty money. The conflict of interest, that's a mild phrase, isn't it, given the level of corruption that we've been witnessing? And this guy even admits it on camera. When the Ukrainian government was investigating Hunter Biden, then he says, no, you shut that down. You fire the investigator or you're not getting our money. Oh, yeah, this is when he was vice president. And the guy said, oh, you're not the president. He said, yeah, well, you call the president. You'll find out. Remember that clip? And then all this information suppressed. And who's suppressing it? The deep state. For lack of a better term, the deep state. Protecting Joe Biden. I'm sorry, but the guy is just greasy. Greasy, 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 dirty. A stain on the presidency, a stain on the country. an embarrassment. I really have no sympathy for the guy, even though he's clearly going senile. He's just been such a jerk and now so corrupt. And as that New York Post journalist asserted, yeah, it's all true, 100% verified. Everything they reported in the New York Post from the very beginning, completely accurate, totally suppressed. That's how you cook an election. What's going to happen the next time they go to the polls, the next time people get to vote? We don't know. I'll tell you this, in Canada, Justin Trudeau, very unpopular. He might now be the most unpopular prime minister in Canadian history. And yet the polls don't reflect that. It's a strange thing. But today, he was heckled, people jeered, and they prevented him from speaking at an event. Don't go away. When we come back, I'll show you a video.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Justin Trudeau was in Belleville, Ontario today. And seems just about everywhere he goes, he is heckled. And depending on where he arrives, sometimes the crowds get, it's borderline, man. The temperature is hot. And I am not talking about climate change. Well, maybe political climate change. The Teflon has worn off, Mr. Fancy Socks. Check out the mob. Well, should it be a mob? Is it a mob? I don't know if it's a mob. It's an angry group of people who greeted him at this event in Belleville, Ontario. It's my understanding that he actually had to turn around and leave. Now, I don't know. I have to check to see if he ever got in there to actually speak. But check this out. People are not happy with JT, the PM.
You're a traitor, Trudeau! You're the fucking communist! Get out of Canada! You're communist bastard! Communist bastard! Fuck Trudeau! 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 Fuck you! You wanted Trudeau! You fucking criminal! You guys shouldn't represent him. What a fucking loser! Beat it, Trudeau! You fucking killer! Get going! Get going! You're a fucking piece of shit! Get the fuck out! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! You're a pathetic kid! You are a pathetic kid! You're all a bunch of pathetic kids!
street! Off the street!
Chill out!
Off the street, please! Off the street! Move people backwards, please! Back up!
You must go! That's right, fucking run! Run, Trudeau!
Back,
Run, bud! Run away!
You must buy your pants at the same place the other guy bought his pants. Only yours are.
What fucking guy did I see get pushed? You know how many women I did? Oh, you
I've never seen you play. You suck, Trudeau. You need security. You fucking loser. Fuck you, Trudeau.
I'm going to run it one more time. I want to listen to some of those words. Bear with me. I want to listen to some of those words, not just the profanity. I want to listen to what some of the people there were actually shouting. I'm going to listen carefully.
You're a traitor, Trudeau!
You're the fucking commie! Get out of Canada! You communist bastard! Communist bastard! Fuck Trudeau! 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 Fuck you! You bloody criminal! You're a fucking criminal! You guys shouldn't represent him. What a fucking loser!
Beat it, Trudeau!
You fucking coward! Get going! You're a fucking piece of shit! Get the fuck out! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! You're a pathetic Jew! You are a pathetic Jew! You're all a bunch of pathetic Jews!
Off the street! Off the street!
Chill out!
Off the street, please! Off the street! Move people backwards, please! Back up!
A pathetic Jew!
What is he shouting?
Fuck you! You're a pathetic Jew! You're a fucking piece of shit! Get the fuck out! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! You're a pathetic Jew! You are a pathetic Jew! You're all a bunch of pathetic Jews!
Off the street! Off the street!
Chill out!
Off the street, please! Off the street! Move people backwards, please! Back up!
You must go! That's right, fucking run! Run, Trudeau!
Back, Trudeau!
Run, bud! Run away!
You must buy your pants at the same place the other guy bought his pants. Only yours are.
What fucking guy did I see get pushed? You know how many women I did? Oh, you
I've never seen you play. You suck, Trudeau. You need security. You fucking loser. Fuck you, Trudeau.
Going to be an interesting election.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! To bugs!
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Just looking at the comments. What are people saying in the chat about that? Scroll down here and see what everybody's saying. Oh, here's Choosy. When I was referring to the deep state, he says, Rick, for lack of a better term, Knights of Malta is a better term than deep state. Thank you, Choosy. White supremacists. Well, what other comments do we have regarding that exhibition of frustration, or whatever you want to call that, with Justin Trudeau today? Dude says, I love it. What else do we have? Sean. People need to get some liquid and spray him with it. We have Pure Knight who says trip. Don't know what that means. Riverstick says, Crime Minister Turdo deserves every bit of heckling. Can somebody tell me what that person was shouting? Was somebody shouting pathetic Jew? Is that what was said? That's what I was hearing. Anybody else care to help me decipher that? Was I hearing things correctly? Is that what was shouted? It was two different people. It sounded like the same thing to me. The one woman who was shouting said something to that effect, I think. And then the second person said it repeatedly. Is that what did anybody else hear it that way? Anybody else? I'm going to play it one more time. Tell me if that's what you heard.
You're a fucking piece of shit! Get the fuck out! Fuck you! Fuck you! Fuck you! You're a pathetic Jew! You are a pathetic Jew! You're all a bunch of pathetic Jews!
Off the street! Off the street!
Chill out!
Off the street, please! Off the street! Move keep going backwards, please! Back up!
You fucking idiot! You want to you take me that's right, fucking run! Run, Trudeau! Run, bud! Run away!
You must buy your pants at the same place the other guy bought his pants. Only yours are.
What fucking guy did I see get pushed? You know how many women I did?
You suck, Trudeau. You need security. You fucking loser. Fuck you, Trudeau.
One more time. Some people seem to think it's pathetic puke. I heard, well, Jew. You tell me.
You guys shouldn't represent him. What a fucking loser.
Beat it, Trudeau.
You fucking coward. Get going. You're a fucking piece of shit. Get the fuck out. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. You're a pathetic Jew. You are a pathetic Jew.
Off the street! Off the street! Off the street, please! Off the street! Keep going backwards, please! Back up!
That's right, fucking run! Run, Trudeau! Run, bud! Run away!
You must buy your pants at the same place the other guy bought his pants. Only yours are.
One fucking guy did I see get pushed. You know how many women I did? Oh, you
You suck, Trudeau. You need security. You fucking loser. Fuck you, Trudeau.
All right, I'm going to check mainstream media report on this, or some of them, to see what they're saying. They're saying that, of course, it was cut short, as I said, his stop in Belleville. There were about 100 protesters there, according to the reports that I've been able to cultivate or curate off the internet. He was in Belleville to mark the 7th anniversary of the Liberal government's child care benefit. He was going to meet with Belleville's mayor at a farmer's market there. So he had all these protesters show up, along with people who came to get selfies taken with the PM. But the protesters descended. I don't really like to cover protests that much, honestly. This one, I'm just curious. What was said? What were those words? Was it pathetic puke or pathetic Jew? I don't know. I thought I heard pathetic Jew. See what this local paper says. Yeah. Shouted slogans, used bullhorns. Yeah. Nobody else is picking up on that, so I don't know. Maybe they just didn't hear it. Or maybe I'm just, maybe the words were pathetic puke. I don't know. Didn't sound like that to me. I don't know. I have to confess, folks, I don't like the way politics has gone. I don't see us solving problems with stuff like that. And, really kind of goes back all the way to the pandemic and the convoy. Trudeau himself could have avoided that today, I think, just by, if he, during the convoy, if he'd just come out to talk to the truckers. Or if he'd had the truckers come in to talk to him. If he had spent more time being a true leader and extending olive branches, working to bring people together, this anger that we're seeing maybe wouldn't be where it's at right now. But I'll tell you this, on the other side of the equation, people need to keep a level head. Think. Too many people out there, other influencers online telling people, don't think, just follow your gut. No, always think. Keep a level head, folks. Emotions are running at a fever pitch. And when people stop thinking and start just acting out of emotion, you quickly find yourself in trouble sometimes. So just be careful out there. I hate seeing people get into trouble.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Interesting today. I noticed, and this isn't even, I don't think, so much a timely story. Well, it's sort of it is, but it isn't. I just noticed that CTV today on their website, they're asking people who have left the country. In fact, here, I'll show you right here. They're asking people who have left the country for surgeries to contact them because they want to do a story. This is something that I've touched on here already on many occasions. Do you want to leave? Did you leave Canada for a surgery or a medical procedure? We want to hear from you. And this is because of wait times, which I keep telling people about. And, a lot of people frustrated with wait times. If you're living in the United States, if you're one of our US viewers, take note of this. This is the result of the socialized healthcare system that we have here in Canada that is breaking down. I know that the Canadian system is presented to people on the US side as a beautiful example of what the healthcare system in the US could be. But the reality is, under any system like this, when they give away procedures for free, when you can go to the emergency room for free, when you get the majority of your healthcare procedures for free, not your medications, by the way, but your procedures. And you can go to the doctor and you don't get charged, but they ration the care. Through rationing, it creates long waiting lists. So you can wait months and sometimes even years to get certain procedures done in Canada. And there was this study back in what was that? It was, I've got the study here. I found it. Fraser Institute, a think tank in Canada. Here it is here. I've got it. Yeah, this was done last December. And it indicates that there's been a huge increase in wait times for healthcare in Canada in this report. It says that waiting for treatment has become a defining characteristic of Canadian healthcare, in fact. It says to document the queues for visits to specialists and for diagnostic and surgical procedures in the country, the Fraser Institute has for almost 3 decades surveyed specialist physicians across 12 specialties and 10 provinces. So what they found in the latest study is that specialist physicians have reported a median waiting time of 27.4 weeks between referral from a general practitioner and receipt of treatment, longer than the wait of 25.6 weeks reported in 2021. So it just keeps getting longer and longer. And so right now, the wait time is the longest wait time recorded in the survey's history and is, get this, 195% longer than it was in 1993, when it was just 9.3 weeks. Now, it's like 27 weeks, almost 28 on average. And in some cases, it's much longer. There's a huge variation in the wait times depending on where you live, what kind of procedure you need. The shortest wait is about 20 weeks. The longest, about 64. That's over a year, folks. And it depends, as I say, on what you need, what specialists you need. And there are long wait times even to get in to see just a family doctor, a general practitioner. And it just keeps getting worse. From referral by a general practitioner to consultation with a specialist, the waiting time in this segment, it says here, increased from 11.1 weeks in 2021 to 12.6 weeks in 2022. That's just to see a regular family physician. If you can even get one, I don't have a family doctor. This wait time is 242% longer than it was in 1993, when it took just 3 to 7 weeks. The shortest waits for specialist consultations are in Ontario, 10.1 weeks, while the longest occur in Prince Edward Island, 41.7 weeks. Wait. Hurry up and wait. And just getting certain procedures done, too, can take a long time. Diagnostic technologies like and procedures like MRIs can take weeks or months. So that's what the Fraser Institute, this think tank, is reporting in its latest report survey. No surprise, really. And Canadians know it. Canadians value their health care. They always say, oh, well, we want our free health care, but you have very long wait times, to the point, honestly, where depending on the procedure, you could die on the waiting list. And they prioritize and they decide who goes first and so on. And they just have never been able to really work it out. And the mainstream media finally, sort of, kind of acknowledging the issue. It looks like at least some of those reporters over there want to do something with that as a story. And, good. Draw some attention to it finally. In Canada, it has for too long, healthcare has for too long been treated like a sacred cow. Not allowed to criticize it. If you do, boy, you are on the outs. When I did, some of my healthcare reporting back in the mainstream media days, I found myself sort of on a, labeled as a black sheep because I was critical. I was critical of the Canadian healthcare system. A lot of people didn't like it. I paid a price for that. I was too young and naive to realize that just being balanced and fair and practicing real journalism was a bad idea. I just didn't see the politics in it. Speaking of politics, how about Barbie? Barbie the movie. Has anyone seen Barbie the movie, the Barbie movie? when I went to see Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning the other night, Barbie was playing, and I thought, well, maybe we should see the Barbie movie. It's got a pink Corvette in it. Barbie's got a pink Corvette, but I didn't go see the Barbie movie. The thing about Barbie is that the Barbie brand has been hammered by feminists for a long time. Oh, Barbie's a stereotype. You know, you think about all of the feminist rhetoric and venom that they've been spitting at Barbie over the years because of her body shape and, you know, setting a standard for women and young girls that they just can't meet because Barbie's proportions are physically impossible for a human woman to achieve. And we have seen some women and over the years engage in such extensive surgical procedures, plastic surgeries, augmentations that we've seen women actually try to turn themselves into physical living Barbies. It's weird, honestly. I think to see how people are influenced to such a degree by media like that. It shows you how powerful media is, and it shows you how the influencing that takes place is not just done in a direct manner through television, radio, and so on. It's also done through merchandising, advertising, toys like dolls. And people sometimes take it so seriously, whether it's Star Wars fanatics or Barbie collectors or women who want to actually become a Barbie. Well, now, because of this Barbie movie, I guess some feminist groups are embracing the film. And they're saying that it's showing that women have an opportunity here to usher in hyperfemininity or whatever. It depends on your perspective on this. Some feminists are saying this is a good thing because Barbie is, I guess, a role model for women because she's had so many different jobs over the years. She's even been an astronaut. You know, she's done all kinds of different things, a veterinarian, a nurse, might have been a doctor. They've tried to make Barbie woke over the years, I guess is the point. Have they succeeded? Well, money talks. I guess if somebody's making enough money, they'll change their point of view on all of this. But they're actually sitting here trying to tell me and tell you that this Barbie movie actually has a pretty good script. And who is this guy wearing the Barbie thing with the mustache? That looks pretty woke to me. What is that? I don't understand. This is Kivo Rivera, 32 years old, and Jasmine Lee or Lai, 27, in their Barbie best. I did not see the movie. I cannot give you an actual review. I really don't want to see the movie. I'm afraid to see the movie. If I see the movie, my brain may explode. I don't care what they say in this article on NBC about this movie having a good script. I don't believe them. There's no freaking way that this movie has any real depth to it at all. Although, I suppose, maybe I should see it. You could analyze the living daylights out of this thing. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should go see the Barbie movie and give you a full review. I'm very afraid of it, honestly. says here, the movie marks the mainstream arrival of ideologies that have long bubbled up on social media. On TikTok, many women are in the midst of a bimbo renaissance in which the hyperfeminine is embraced. As Barbie debuts, the movie appears to fit perfectly into that cultural moment with its feminist tones, toy fantasy world, and plethora of pink products. This is, to me, bizarre because all of this stuff just a few years ago would have been completely, totally, absolutely, uncategorically rejected by feminists. Barbie might seem like an unlikely vessel for a feminist message, it says here. Throughout her 64-year history, Barbie has been both lauded and criticized for her representation of womanhood. Barbara Millicent Roberts, better known as Barbie, first debuted in 1959 in the American Toy Fair in New York City as an 11-inch blonde with a rosy pout, according to History.com. She was created by Ruth Handler, co-founder of Mattel, after Handler watched her daughter play with paper dolls. So it says here, Barbie has had more than 250 jobs, including as an astronaut landing on the moon 4 years before Neil Armstrong. Ha ha! So there you go. Neil Armstrong wasn't the first human on the moon. He might have been the first man, but Barbie beat him to the lunar surface. Since her inception, Barbie has been shrouded in duality. She's seen as an idealized woman created to mold girls in the shape of the male gaze. Yeah, well, she does certainly represent a certain version or brand of beauty, sort of a child's Playboy image, I would almost characterize it as. Myself, that's what comes to mind. Or maybe I should say Playboy embraced and other organizations, publications, media companies like Playboy, cultural brands also have adopted that Barbie image as being sort of the ultimate in sex symbology. Barbie's proportions have often been criticized for being unrealistic, with long legs and a petite waist, it says. One study found that if Barbie were a real person with her proportions, she'd have to walk on all fours. Another study published in 2016 in the journal Body Image analyzed the responses of 112 girls between 6 and 8 years old on Long Island who played with dolls of different body shapes and found that more girls who played with thin dolls like Barbie experienced discrepancies between their actual versus ideal body sizes. But some people, some groups, still actually view Barbie as a progressive icon for women. That's what they're trying to do here. You know what this sounds like to me? It sounds like somebody's been paid a lot of money to back off on Barbie and stop beating up on Barbie because they've got a bunch of money invested in a film that's right now in the theaters and they need to sell tickets. So they need moms to take their daughters and their sons, I guess, and get them all dressed up in pink and get out there to the theaters and buy those tickets up and then buy your Barbies. When I was at the movie theater, they were selling Barbies at the concession. You could buy your Barbies right there. I miss the old days, the old theaters with the sticky floors and the seats that were kind of rickety and caved in and didn't really fit together right anymore because they're all loose and worn out. I like that. I like going to the repertory cinemas, the sort of the art movie houses where they'd run sort of obscure art films and documentaries and things like that. There was one in the town where I grew up, and I used to go down there every Friday and Saturday night, just about every Friday for sure. And I'd go see some obscure movie. That's where I saw things like, too, some actually big movies like Clockwork Orange and Dr. Strangelove. And there was a sci-fi movie I watched there called A Boy and His Dog. Oh, and then there was that great movie. If you haven't seen this, You can probably find parts of it, if not the whole thing, online. My Dinner with Andre. Check that out. You want to blow your mind? Yeah, that goes back to what, the 1980s, I think. And that movie foreshadows everything that we're going through today. I was watching that stuff when I was a kid. I don't know. Maybe I was just a little too weird. But over at InfoWars, here's their take on the Barbie movie. Just to show you the difference in the coverage and the way that the tone. So they go all the way to Madrid's Barbie film premiere in Spain, and they say flooded with disturbing trannies. So you've got the drag queens out, I guess, for the premiere, and they went to, and so InfoWars is focusing on that. Totally different kind of take on the Barbie movie from the other side of the political spectrum. I think it's kind of weird because, as I say, I mean, mainstream media just a few years ago, they would have just torn that Barbie movie to shreds. But here we are. I guess the pink Corvette has suddenly become politically correct. And yet, I don't know if that Corvette is electric. Now there's something that could trigger someone.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Back. But Paul Bernardo, serial killer, he ain't going back. He's not going back to maximum security. Nope. Just back to Canada here for a moment, where Paul Bernardo recently moved to a medium security facility, prison, is going to stay there. Well, his move was very controversial, and when the public found out that this serial rapist and convicted killer had been moved, people were livid. He's probably the most famous, most notorious serial killer in Canada right now. One of the most despicable human beings in Canadian history. But I guess the Correctional Service of Canada, the CSC, has decided that moving him was the right thing to do, that they're saying that that the decision was, quote, sound. They're saying the move was based in part on what was an effective offender integration plan, and that Bernardo's generally conformist behavior was a positive factor in this, after Bernardo's security classification was reviewed 14 times between 1999 and 2022, basically about every 2 years, which is standard procedure. And they say that the review found that while the review went above policy, in this case, to notify victims, additional steps should have been taken to provide more information. So they're acknowledging that they should have notified the families of the victims before moving him, but nevertheless, they're going to leave him where he is. He's 58 years old now, this guy, and is serving a life sentence, the length of which is not determined. I don't think he'll ever get out. He shouldn't. He should never be allowed out again for what he did. He was convicted back in 1995 for the kidnapping, rape, torture, murder of two teenagers, 15-year-old Kristen French and 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. That happened near St. Catharines, Ontario. He was also convicted of manslaughter in the death of Tammy Homolka, the sister of his then wife, Carla Homolka. So still a political hot potato. Liberal government under fire. It is a political issue. And the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada tonight responding with this.
Thank you very much for coming. My thoughts today are, of course, with the victims and the families of the victims of Paul Bernardo. Today, they are again reliving the nightmare that he exacted upon their families so many decades ago. Today, the Trudeau government reaffirmed that Paul Bernardo will be freed from a maximum security penitentiary to go into a medium security one where he'll have more human contact and more freedom. Now, this is not a decision I blame on the commissioner. She was just implementing the law that Justin Trudeau passed. Bill C-83 requires the commissioner to give the least restrictive environment to all prisoners, including mass murderers. That was a decision that Justin Trudeau made. The solution is very clear and very obvious. Either the Trudeau government should issue a directive, which is currently in its authority, to require all mass murderers stay in maximum security penitentiaries, or they should adopt Conservative Bill C-423, which would do exactly the same thing. That bill would mean that every single mass murderer would go into a maximum security penitentiary, and it would require no interference in any particular prisoner's case. It is a simple and obvious principle, and I commit today that when I am Prime Minister, I will adopt a law keeping all mass murderers, just like Paul Bernardo, in maximum security penitentiaries where they can do no more harm and where they have no freedom to harm other people. Paul Bernardo should leave prison in a box when he's dead. He should never be out of a maximum security penitentiary. To allow it is an injustice to the victims and their families on whom he exacted his terrible outrages. This attitude of Justin Trudeau that favors criminals over public safety is playing out on the streets of Toronto, where a young mother recently lost her life to a stray bullet from a repeat violent offender who was out of jail despite more than a half a dozen violations of probation orders and many other serious violent crimes. A Poilievre government will end Trudeau's catch and release system, put the most serious repeat violent offenders behind bars to bring home public safety for all Canadians. Thank you.
Darrell, I want to ask you about, you mentioned C-83.
Yeah.
Around the same time as C-75.
Yes.
Which said that you have to have the least onerous conditions for bail.
Yes.
Is this just their vision of public safety rather than an attempt to actually keep prisoners behind bars?
Yes, this is Bill C-75, the catch and release law, has turned repeat violent criminals loose onto the streets of Toronto, Vancouver, and everywhere else and caused crime and chaos. And C-83 has allowed Paul Bernardo and possibly other repeat violent offenders and mass murderers to be released from maximum security to more freedom in a medium security penitentiary. This is the wrong approach. We all believe that a first-time offender who makes a small mistake when they're a teenager deserves a second chance, but these are mass criminals that Trudeau is determined to either move into lower security prisons or back into our streets. And that is one of the reasons why we have this crime wave today. Yeah.
Correctional Service of Canada says that it actually followed all the rules for Bernardo
Yeah.
transfer. Would you change those laws or policies regarding CSC? And if so, to what? Yes or no?
Yes. Thank you. And the Correctional Services is right. They did follow all the rules. Justin Trudeau wrote those rules. He's the one that passed C-83, requiring that prisoners get the least restrictive environment, and that includes mass murderers like Paul Bernardo. And he has the power to overturn his prior mistake by sending a directive today that all mass murderers should go to maximum security penitentiary. He could adopt the Conservative private members bill from Niagara Falls MP Tony Baldinelli to require that mass murderers stay in penitentiaries, maximum penitentiaries forever. These are decisions Trudeau could have made, but he didn't. And as a result, this is his decision to allow Bernardo to leave a maximum security penitentiary. When I'm Prime Minister, I will reverse this policy so that all mass murderers stay in max security penitentiaries for the rest of their lives. Oui. Merci beaucoup. Les services.
Okay, so we'll just jump out of that. And just back to the Barbie movie thing. Are you guys aware of the human Barbie? Jessica Alves? If you're not, stay with me, because when I come back, this one will blow your mind too. Pretty crazy stuff. Don't go away.
Exile. The Knights of Malta. Maverick News. Join us. The world is watching. Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So I mentioned the human Barbie. You're looking at her. Him, her. It's 2023, and it's a strange world. So this person, Jessica Alves, has undergone over $1 million, around $1 million worth of cosmetic surgery and augmentations in order to look like this. But Jessica was born a male, and when she was young, her grandfather bought Jessica Barbie dolls. See, when I was a kid, my father would not let me have any dolls of any kind. The girls had Barbies when I was a kid. Boys had G.I. Joes. My dad said he's not allowed to have any. So I wasn't allowed to play with dolls, period. No action figures. no dolls. That meant no Barbies and no G.I. Joes for me. So I got trucks and cars and just other stuff and baseball gloves. But dolls were out. Dolls. Not action figures, dolls. But action figures were dolls. So wasn't allowed to have that. Anyway. But I guess Jessica wanted to play with Barbies and became very fixated on them, I guess. So Alves has had a bunch of nose jobs, and she was diagnosed, I guess, with something the medical establishment today is calling body dysmorphic disorder, which is a mental health condition where a person, according to the medical experts, it's a medical condition where a person spends an obsessive amount of time worrying about flaws in their appearance. So she has been on all kinds of television shows, was on a reality TV series called Botched back in 2017. Obviously, a show that dealt with a lot of issues surrounding cosmetic surgeries. So I don't know, the whole story behind Jessica Alves. I was sort of aware of this. It's just this stuff is not usually on my radar, but because this culture war has deteriorated into this bizarre situation with all of these drag queen story times and the LGBTQ plus blah, 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 protests out on the street on a daily basis now. And then now the Barbie movie, I can't help but think that, what we're seeing in the theaters right now is this thinly veiled battle of the culture movies that's playing out. You've got The Sound of Freedom and one in theater 7, and then right next to it, you've got the Barbie movie in theater 8. And then I went to see the Mission Impossible movie, which deals with a artificial intelligence future. So that's foreshadowing things to come there. And then the Indiana Jones flick, I don't know what to make of that. I'm not sure what the script is there, so I'm not sure if it plays in. But my guess is, like every other movie I've seen in the past probably 10 years, it has some sort of a culture war message attached to it that is designed to engineer society socially. So here's, and this has an impact on people. I don't think there's any question about it. You're seeing it here with this Jessica Alves, who has spent over, like I said, about $1 million on 103 cosmetic procedures, including injections, 51 of which were plastic surgeries. She's had liposuction. She's had gel filler injected into her shoulders, biceps, triceps. She's applied minoxidil topically, has had implants, and a number of facelifts. She wears tinted contact lenses. She's had 12 nose jobs. She started to undergo plastic surgery when she was just 17 years old. Said she always felt feminine, struggled to be manly with her personality, and decided to make her appearance as masculine as possible instead. But no matter how much I looked like Ken, she said, nothing eased the pain of being Barbie inside. She actually went through a bunch of these surgeries trying to make herself look like a Ken doll at first. That wasn't working out. Couldn't make herself look enough like Ken, so she transitioned to Barbie. I can't help but think that that's not mentally stable, but who am I to judge? I guess I am, right? That doesn't seem right to me, to go to this level. I can maybe understand somebody if they feel inadequate in some way and they make a choice, they want to do something, but to take it to this extent, my guess is that Jessica probably looked just fine the way he or she or was from the very beginning. But people become very insecure. And, I think that media does play a big role in it, and therefore also government, in shaping people's self-perception. And they blame it on the media. They blame it on mass media. They blame it on, the fashion industry or advertising, marketing, you know, with stereotyping of women and sending negative messages. But now suddenly, isn't it weird how they're embracing all of this? Where just a few years ago, women were being told, don't get plastic surgery. You shouldn't do that because you're beautiful just the way you are. And now everything has shifted, it's changed. And they're like, oh, no, it's okay. You should get surgery and transition to this or transition to that. It's okay to feel insecure because this will make you feel better. And I'm not sure that it does. Although now the most recent reports indicate that Jessica says that she is 95% satisfied with where things have landed or wound up, where she's at right now.
I lived a great life in the past. I've been there, I've done it all. More than 700 television shows in 24 countries. I speak 7 languages. I had a very successful career. Once I decided to transition 3 years ago, I lost pretty much everything. I transitioned throughout COVID. I mean, a lot of us lost a lot of things. Being life changing, still is. We are coming back to it now, but coming back to life now, post-COVID, I am really happy. I'm fully transitioned. I've done all the surgeries required not to be a woman. I was able also to change even my birth certificate. It says Jessica Alves, born in Brazil, female.
Okay. Human Barbie. Something else. I don't know. I just don't know. Not for me. Not for me. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm just checking on a news story here that I think I want to share with you, but I just need to get the right information over here. So just give me one moment and I'll get it lined up for you. Don't go away.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so earlier I said I can't believe that Joe Biden is being allowed to stay in the White House after all the information that has come out from the Hunter Biden laptop from hell. And again today, during this hearing into censorship in front of Congress. Wow. But now Senator Chuck Grassley has done something, well, unusual. He has released unverified an unverified FBI source report, which alleges Biden involvement in a bribe. So this is new stuff tonight. And this all points to evidence of the Biden family being involved in a Ukrainian deal with a Ukrainian oligarch to pay them $10 million, which we've been hearing about. Now, Grassley has accelerated things. He's added to these allegations by releasing this new information, these new documents. So details of this unclassified document known as FD 1023 have emerged in recent months as Republicans have been searching for any evidence that they can find to show that Joe Biden engaged in controversial, shall we say, illegal overseas business dealings with his son Hunter, which Biden, the president, and his aides have constantly, repeatedly denied. But the evidence seems to suggest maybe that's not the case. So back in May, Republicans in Congress, you may remember the big news conference that they had, and they laid out a whole bunch of evidence and documents in detail, which were pretty damning for Joe Biden and Hunter. Well, now Grassley has released these new documents. Here, I'm going to show you. All this happening tonight. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. I don't hold out much hope for any kind of real justice in any of this stuff, because it seems like anything that happens with these political investigations, they always just seem to go nowhere. No one's ever held accountable. But here we go again. Here's Grassley. So here are the documents. Here's the FBI report. As you can see, I think it's up on the screen. Yep. So we've got that. So that's what he has his hands on. Let's go back up here and listen to what Chuck Grassley had to say about this.
Well, it's been a long time, almost a year, but thanks to patriotic people that we call whistleblowers, in this case, in the bowels of the bureaucracy of the FBI and the Department of Justice, I'm able today to release to the American people the FBI document that we go by the number 1023 that has some information that the American people might know about some shenanigans that Vice President Biden and Hunter Biden may have been involved in. Now it's up to the FBI to tell us what they've done in regard to this. But I want the people to be able to read, the people of this country, to be able to read what I read 3 months ago so that they know. By the way, this was an unclassified document, and there was no reason it should have taken 1 year to get our hands on this document so the American people can read it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. He's got it now. It's out in the public. So you can go to his, it's actually up on Twitter. He's posted that document on Chuck Grassley's Twitter account. So that's available for you. Also, tonight, Russia has imposed travel restrictions on UK diplomats. Another new development, diplomatic escalation and further deterioration of relations between Western NATO countries and Russia. So these UK diplomats now need to get permission to travel beyond a certain perimeter of wherever they're staying. A 120 kilometer or 75-mile radius is what they are restricted to now. And if they want to go beyond that, they have to state the purpose of their trip, the route, accommodations, and planned contacts. The ambassador, the consuls in Moscow, and the deputy chief of mission are exempt from the order. Nevertheless, it shows that we're still a long way away from peace talks. Quite the opposite. Okay, I have another story for you lined up. Don't go away. This one's kind of interesting. It's got to do with UFOs. Don't go away.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. And to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! To bugs!
Okay, so, like I said last night, truth is stranger than fiction. But I don't know what to make of all this UFO talk. I think it would be foolish to think that we are alone in the universe. It's a big universe. There's got to be some other place out there somewhere where there's life. Intelligent life like humans? Are there humans on other planets? I don't know. Are there actually aliens out there flying around? I don't know. People can believe what they want to believe. What I don't quite get, what I don't quite understand is why the media is now acknowledging this stuff, why the US government is coming out with this stuff and talking about it to the level that it is talking about it at. I don't quite get it. I was watching another sort of independent media outlet the other day, and I won't mention who it was because I'm not sure how people might take what I'm about to say, but they were all in on this UFO stuff, man. Like all in. And I kind of liked the program, but for me, the story that was told, the person that they interviewed, the story is just a little too far beyond belief for me. People see things in the sky. They don't know what they are. I can buy that. Are there possibly aliens flying around out there? Maybe. Anything is possible, I suppose. And a lot of things can't be explained. And I have people who are close to me who insist that they've actually seen UFOs. Well, tonight, another story, mainstream media. Here's ABC. Big story. Like they're actually giving it some actual play, Actual play. Profile. I don't ever remember a time like this. Here, look. So, extraterrestrial technical supremacy is a top concern, according to a Pentagon UFO investigator. And here's this guy. He's new in this job. This guy's name is Sean Kirkpatrick. He is a scientist and military intelligence officer. He's leading the government investigation into unidentified anomalous phenomena. And he did this interview with ABC. So, I mean, the reality of this is what they're saying is they don't know what some of these objects are. They don't want to get caught off guard if there's maybe another country out there that has superior technology that would render the United States vulnerable to some sort of attack, I guess. But they're also sitting here saying that maybe it is extraterrestrial stuff. He says we have to go through the rigor of taking each one, matching it against our known objects and catalogs, and then reviewing that, peer reviewing that, and making sure that everybody is in agreement, he said, of the process, which has included establishing a government-wide data collection initiative. So they've looked into high-profile UAP, which is unidentified, what is that? Unidentified blah, blah, blahs phenomena. Okay, whatever. Funky terms that they come up with, right? To describe this stuff. I mean, so mainstream media treating this all very seriously. The government seems to be treating it seriously, or is this just them trying to distract us? Is it some sort of a psyop? I don't know. I just don't know. I've never seen this level of attention, this level of excitement directed at UFO stuff, or UAP, UFP, whatever the heck they want to call them. The House Oversight Committee announced earlier this week that it will be holding a hearing on phenomena. And yeah, there's more whistleblowers coming forward. And I guess these things are being pursued, so people are trying to figure out who's telling the truth and what's really going on out there. So this guy, it's his job to kind of get to the bottom of it, I guess. Will they actually tell us the truth? Have they been telling us the truth? Is this all a big conspiracy theory? I don't know, but they did release this video. When was this? This was U.S. government released this. Can't remember the date on this. It was about a year ago, maybe not even a year ago. Hang on, I'm going to show you this footage. Just get it queued up for you. Where did you go, footage? Too many tabs open. This is pretty, this is, normally UFO footage is kind of grainy and stuff. This, not so much. This is pretty clear. And it, here we go. It's right in here somewhere. Oh, for crying out loud. So many stories here covered. I want to show you this footage. I had it all lined up for you. I'm sure it's here somewhere. Hang on. Here it is. I've got it. Okay, so look at this. These are like triangular shaped flying objects. Here we go. Scan over. Look at that. This was released by the U.S. government. So, what is that? Is that a solid object, or is that some sort of a thing being projected onto clouds? Some sort of a... There's 3 of them up there, you see? At least 3, maybe more. Very weird. So they appear to be something flying in the air, but that could be done just with light, potentially. I have no idea. I really just don't know. So that was actually, it was released last May, but it was shot in 2019, somewhere on the West Coast in an undisclosed location, an unidentified aerial phenomena. And that was shown before the House Intelligence Counterintelligence and Counterproliferation Subcommittee. That was on May 17th of last year. The Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, Scott Bray, shared that video. And it shows multiple objects initially identified as UAPs harassing Navy ships participating in naval exercises off Southern California, the exact location not disclosed. The video was taken by sailors on board one of the ships and was captured through night vision goggles with a single lens reflex camera. Based on additional information and data from other UAP sightings, the UAPs in this video were subsequently reclassified as unmanned aerial systems. Well, maybe we're not alone. Maybe we got some visitors out there. A lot of talk about UFOs right now. Well, folks, I'm going to wrap it up at this point. We will be back tomorrow night, same time, same station. We do need your help. If you want this channel to continue, we do need some support. I'm just being straight up with you. We've got some bills to pay, and we could really use a little bit of help. So if you're inclined to do that, you can donate at freedomreporters.com. Where is it? There's the banner right there. freedomreporters.com. That'll take you to the PayPal page. You can also donate at maverickdonations.com. I know that some of you don't like to use PayPal, and that's why we have the Give, Send, Go set up over on that URL, maverickdonations.com. So I would really appreciate support of any kind. Truly would. It's very, very difficult to sit here literally like 7 days a week, prepare all day, and then do the broadcast every night and pay the bills. It takes me away from everything else, honestly. So this is pretty much mostly what I'm doing all the time, is just getting these broadcasts together every night. If you like what we're doing, it's up to you to keep it going. We need support. Bottom line, that's it. Otherwise, we can't be here. So it's up to you. Because we've got bills to pay. Is the bottom line. And they're coming due. So I'll leave it out there at that. Yeah. Please like, share, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please consider doing that. Hit the notification bell. We've got more than one YouTube channel as well. So please subscribe on all of them if you find them. And please consider subscribing over on our Rumble channels as well. That is super important, because then we won't, we continue on over there, even if we get kicked off these other platforms. Our Facebook ban remains in place, but we'll hopefully be allowed to start posting again over there at some point. We're still up on Twitter and Twitch and CloudHub and Gab and these other places as well. We don't actually post on Gab Video, but we post the links and things over there. YouTube, we're up over there with, posting the videos afterward and other content. TikTok, we're posting shorts over on TikTok. We don't go live there, but we could at some point if we get enough subscribers. Just haven't had much traction over there. And YouTube, Facebook, they still are the main platforms, and Rumble. We're doing pretty well on Rumble. So thank you, everybody, for subscribing over there. I will be back tomorrow night, same time, same station, the Maverick News Channel, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there, spending your night with me. I will catch you all on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.